Welcome to the Content Talk for ECEL 3468, Community, Family, and Program Relations. This Content Talk is about defining family. Many practitioners and family members find families and family dynamics fascinating. Periodically in this course, you will have the opportunity to explore the mysterious nature of families, including your own. One of the key assignments in this course will be you utilizing your own teacher action research interests to identify an aspect of community and family and program relations that you want to strengthen, improve, or initiate in your program. Family is a complicated construct to define. Review some of the definitions here. A family is a group of two people or more, one of whom is the householder, related by birth, marriage, or adoption, and residing together. Ultimately, I define family as the smallest organized, durable network of kin and non-kin who interact daily, provide domestic needs of children, and assure their survival. We define family as any group of people related either biologically, emotionally, or legally. That is, the group of people that the patient defines as significant for his or her well-being. The National Institute of Mental Health adopted the definition of a network of mutual commitment to connote the new structures that are the reality of families in the 1990s. There are diverse types of families, many of which include people related by marriage, biology, adoption, as well as people related through affection, obligation, dependence, or cooperation. The concept of family is ever dynamic, ever evolving, and ever defined by the immediate cultural and political context that it is embedded in. While there could be many functions of a family, here is a list of the most common and basic functions of a family. So families provide a function, which is providing basic needs such as shelter, nutrition, social emotional support, and economic support. Families create norms and transmit culture and beliefs. Families provide economic support and physical resources for children. They provide children with shelter, nutrition, clothing, and other basic needs. The family also provides social and emotional support to children. Family processes are basic patterns of interaction and are shaped through norms and beliefs. Families create their own internal norms. These norms guide how the family interacts with each other, the roles individuals have in the family, such as mother does all the laundry, children shouldn't question their adult authority, etc., and how the family is organized, such as no television on weekdays, read books at bedtime, etc. Family belief systems are shared values and assumptions that provide meaning and organize the experience in the social world and guide the family life. Cultural beliefs and practices from the family and the program or classroom, for example, help the child situate and define their interactions with others. Family structures can vary. These include two-parent households, single-parent families, grandparents acting as parents, and parents who are LGBT, such as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender adults. Important points to consider and really understand is that families provide the child physical and social emotional support and basic needs. Families have a set of norms that guide their family processes, and these are influenced by cultural and beliefs. So what is a family? There are many different answers to this question. The government often uses one definition of family, a group of people who are related by birth, marriage, or adoption. However, for many, this definition doesn't encompass everyone in the family. A traditional family epitomizes this historical governmental definition of what a family is. The traditional family is often depicted as a nuclear family comprising of a two-parent household in which the husband works and provides for the family and the wife tends to the house and the children. However, this traditional family is not an accurate depiction of what families really look like in the past and look like currently. Rather, it's a view of what some families looked like. The definition and the standard of the ideal family were set by dominant groups rather than considering the possibilities and other ways that individuals create a family. Currently, the definition of family has greater variance. That means greater differences from group to group. And it may include individuals who don't have really legal relationships or ancestral bonds with the members of the family. Family can be broadly defined as a group of individuals who have a shared destiny and have intimate relationships with each other. The key information is to understand that in the current society, the definition of family really varies. It is important to understand that when we work with families and children in our program, we're going to encounter varied views of what family is. Like the earlier quote from the first slide after our title page, this quote, "No other social institution is as poorly understood as the family," highlights the difficulty of understanding this construct of family. There are many aspects of family: social, emotional, historical, cultural, and more. Some researchers describe family as the household or the people who share a common table. Another broad definition would be individuals who share a past and share a future. Recognition of the shortcomings of the definition of family signaled an important step forward, a move towards studying the interactions and transactions of family life through the study of family practices. The family is no longer to be conceived of as a static or concrete social unit. The notion of family practices carries with it a sense of action and doing rooted in every day. Family practices are linked to wider notions of parenthood, kinship, marriage, and the expectation and obligations associated with these things. Now let's take a look at understanding family systems. Core principles of family systems theory include the following. The family is made up of interconnected members who affect each other in predictable ways. Families have entrenched patterns of behavior that allow them to operate and survive in the world. Prior generations, current experiences and stressors, as well as broader cultural expectations, may influence these. The way a family maintains its emotional balance even when there is a disruption will be addressed later. It's important to consider that the family as a whole, when working with the individual child, it is a complex system with subsystems. Each family system has invisible boundaries that dictate who is in or out of the family. And again, we'll look at that concept later. If we're going to understand family engagement in a young child's learning and development, we need to understand family systems. Our families teach us how to be in the world and shape our interactions of how the world might interact with us. The way a child interacts with you as an educator may be well linked to the relationship the child is learning in their family. The intersection with attachment theory is very important, both in looking at the child's attachment strategies and the adults. It is important to maintain a curious, reflective stance when thinking about these behaviors. How do they serve the child across realms, such as home, the program, or school, and across domains of functioning, such as social, emotional, and cognitive and language development of the child? The style of attachment between the child and the adult is one of the aspects of the family system. This table is adapted from an article by Joan Stevenson Hyde, and it highlights the different styles of attachment. As you can see, family functioning can be linked to the adult attachment classification. As family systems tend to repeat patterns, the parent's classification tells us something about how interactions with the child might be, and then the child's attachment strategies. This, of course, is much more complex than the chart can capture, but it gives us kind of a global understanding, a broad understanding, or a sense of how attachment styles in the family might be related. So when we look at family functioning, if the family is adaptive, so there may be some mutual sensitivity and supportive, and there's appropriate autonomy within the family, then we might see that the child is secure in its interactions in the classroom. The child reads signals from adults and other individuals in their classroom. When the family functioning of the child is insensitive and angry, we might see the child's interactions tend to be unresponsive, tense. Maybe they will be averse to contact with you. They may be guarded, avoidant, and have a neutral affect within their interactions. It is through family scripts that attachment styles and family functioning play out. The family scripts are entrenched patterns of behavior within the family system. In The Changing Face of the United States, The Influence of Culture on Early Childhood Development, Beth Maschinot talks about cultural scripts that are often outside of awareness, but yet hold one's worldview. They become just the way things are done. A family script becomes the way a family does things. Reflect on the points about family scripts. From pre-verbal years, children absorb a family's way of talking, behaving, emoting, and being. From generation to generation, influences can be traced. Their parents and their parents before them influence parents. Family scripts are embedded in social, cultural, and economic expectations. Unwritten scripts are memorized from the start. Each person grows up knowing how to be a part of the family. According to family systems theory, families have characteristics that govern their day-to-day functionings. There are 6 characteristics that family might be helpful for you to know about in terms of your role as an early childhood professional. These are boundaries, roles, rules, hierarchy, climate, and equilibrium. All of these exist on a continuum, and over the course of your career, you will probably experience families at all points on the continuum. We will go briefly over each of these characteristics. As we do, consider where your own family falls within each of these characteristics. Boundaries are often invisible rules that dictate who is in or out of the family. Like all of these familial characteristics, boundaries exist on a continuum. It is important to keep in mind that neither end of the continuum is good or bad. They are merely ways of being that families have adopted that work for them. We will briefly discuss each end of the continuum. Keep in mind that these terms of disengagement and enmeshment are not value-laden in family systems work. They are descriptive. This is little different from the earlier information on attachment theory, where we see how child-family involvement can fall into disengaged and enmeshed modes of being, and that can translate to different types of insecure attachments for the child. Disengaged families tend to be open to outsiders. In addition, each family member is very independent, and separateness and autonomy is valued over a sense of belonging. So have you ever worked with a family like this? What did it feel like for you? The literature describes that enmeshed families as close systems. They are close and restrictive within the family. Togetherness, belonging, emotional connectedness, and conformity are valued. Identity is very much tied to the identity of the family. Perhaps you have worked with a family that's like this. Keep in mind these 2 types is important in your work with families. It may be helpful as you understand why you feel brought in or held at arm's length when discussing a child. It's not necessarily personal, but it's a context for understanding how the family operates in the broader social world and in its own family system that's influencing how they're working with you. Each family member often has a role, and this role tends to continue at work, at school, and in other places. These roles include some examples such as helper, clown, peacemaker, fixer, rebel. Roles can be tricky in that individuals can become stuck in these. Each child in your program or classroom comes in with a role. You may see it playing out. How might you help this child broaden their sense of role and try on other roles as well? Ideas might include giving children opportunities, many opportunities to experience new roles in structured and unstructured situations, such as role plays and free play. You can also help families recognize a range of roles that their children can take on and be successful, and then develop different strengths. Rules are sets of standards and traditions, spoken and unspoken, that govern families. They also determine how people interact, how often playful interactions take place, and in what context. The family rules have cultural contexts. Educators may be more or less aware of family rules and how they carry over to impact children's school behaviors. As an early childhood professional, it is important to understand and make a distinction between home and school rules for the child and the family. Also, be very sensitive to the unspoken rules, what is not said as well as what is said. Partner with families to understand roles and rules from their point of view. Each family has a hierarchy, and it is important to understand this concept to be able to engage appropriately with the person in charge in terms of decision-making, control, and power in the family. Not knowing this can lead to miscommunication and disconnect yourself with families. Ask each family to share this information with you. For example, you might ask them, how are decisions about children made in the family? How do you want information about the child to be shared with you? And with whom? More general questions about how the family works. As an educator, you may observe certain family interactions too. Does one parent defer to the other? Or do the parents defer to the grandparent? How does the child bring this into the program or classroom? How might you offer the child different places in the program or classroom hierarchy to operate in different roles? As always, it is important to reflect on your family and experience of a family hierarchy. Based on your experience, what is it like for you to encounter a family with a similar or different hierarchy? Climate is another characteristic that influences a family's day-to-day functioning and operations. The economic status of a family does not determine its climate. It is both the emotional and physical environment of the family. Emotional climate is about beliefs held about children and families. Physical climate is the actual environmental surroundings. Provide chances for families to share their hopes and dreams for their children and how they will support their children or how they do support their children. Keep an open, curious, and non-judgmental stance so that parents feel that they can share many different aspects with you, not only the positive ones. It may be important to understand some of the challenges as well as the strengths of the home climates. Create a safe, nurturing, and healthy early learning environment for all children. This can be an important buffer and source of resilience, as well as a place for children to feel safe and loved, regardless of the home environment. When the balance of families is thrown off by change, it may affect children in your early learning setting as well as at home. Many of you may have experienced this in your years of working with young children. For example, when divorce or a loss of a family member due to death or some other reason for that loss, such as a military family or incarceration, this change can throw off and affect that child. So balance really helps family members to understand what to expect. And it can be challenging when families lose that predictability. Certain boundaries in the family may change, but the system may resist those changes. The system wants to have that equilibrium. However, it makes it hard for families to change, and it is often why patterns continue and pass from generation to generation. Support families in finding other rituals and ways in the midst of change to help families feeling secure and stable. Family systems theory helps us understand why family members behave the way they do. The family is complex. It may be complicated at times, it may be messy, but it's always ever changing. As educators, we often are pulled into the family system as an ally, a fixer, or even a scapegoat. Theory that provides a framework for us to understand can help us avoid blaming or take on the natural tendency where educators try to fix families. Now let's take a brief look at what is family engagement. What word would you use to describe family involvement, family engagement, family participation? We want to think about what we want to happen with families in our role as early childhood educators. It's important to note that engage means to draw into, involve, attract, to hold. Involve means to draw in as a participant. Participate means to take part in something. So we prefer family engagement because it's more about attendance and participation. It refers to intentional effort on the part of parents and others to be completely immersed in their child's learning and development by promoting positive behaviors and ensuring well-being. The majority of parents really do want to be a part of their children's learning in some way. In an analysis of over 37 studies on family engagement research, it was found that attendance at and participation in school activities, while important, have substantially less impact than parental expectations for their children, communicating about school activities and actually developing habits of reading and being a part of curriculum. Family engagement also can increase motivation in children for learning, can reduce behavioral problems at school, and can improve the children's social emotional adjustment. Further, children's impulse control, their attention, their memory, their planning skills, that all play a critical role in school readiness, are actually fostered through family engagement. Here's a definition of family engagement. Family engagement is an overarching approach for building relationships with families that support family well-being, strong parent-child relationships, and ongoing learning and development of children. It covers three aspects of relationship building with families: family well-being, focus on the parent-child relationship, and the child's ongoing development. This is important as we think about family engagement. It's no longer just about how families are involved in schools, it's much broader. Children and youth learn everywhere, anywhere, anytime, not just in school. And they thrive when they explore and discover things that they are curious about. During after-school programs and in parks and recreation activities is a shared responsibility among families, educators, and communities to support children's learning and their development. When families take an active part in their children's education, they really are living out family engagement. So engagement strategies that have a really important effect is when families are reading with their children, communicating with their child, sharing family expectations. And a key point for us to understand is that families support children in their learning and become engaged, that engagement in the academic tasks is really where the best influence is for their child's education and the child educational outcomes. Family involvement will decrease and change as children develop. In early childhood, you'll see much more family engagement and communication than in upper elementary and adolescent years. In middle childhood, you see more involvement in homework and other activities at home versus necessarily school academics. There are many barriers to family engagement. The most frequent are time and childcare issues. Additionally, families have other priorities. For example, many programs in schools have family activities during times when second or third shift working parents would be unable to attend. Families may also have limited time to talk together, to read, to interact at home, and so that puts another level of stress on families and the child depending on the kinds of activities that are being asked for them to do outside of school. Finally, a family may choose not to be involved in their child's school due to a mismatch between their home culture and their child's school culture. Some families experience other challenges such as financial difficulties, health issues, language barriers, and that will interfere with their full participation. Active families have characteristics that showing that they're more involved in their child's school. So this included many types of families, single and two-parent families, whether poor or middle class or upper class. Research findings suggest that strong parent involvement can overcome negative effects of poverty and single parenting. There are some in the field who prefer the word engagement to involvement, as we've discussed. So when we think about engagement, it's just important to think about active families are involved in regular routines of the child. That's establishing regular routines at home, regular meal times, regular conversations around school, and then discussing and reinforcing positively educational and career interests. Why do families become involved? What is it about educators and programs that encourages engagement? These are important questions for us to be asking and focusing on as we think about community, family, and program relations. When families learn that they are welcomed and that their input is warmly received by teachers and staff members in their school program, they are much more likely to be involved. Many studies note that how welcoming the program is one of the most influential factors. Programs can strive to become more welcoming by entering the early childhood program or school from a new parent's point of view. Is it easy to find where to go? How do staff members greet families when they enter the door? Is it welcoming? Is it stifling? What if English is not understood? Is it easy to find information on child development or the educational program in families' home languages? To ensure families feel welcomed, programs can incorporate role models from diverse backgrounds and celebrate the cultures of all members of the program community. These intangible benefits, such as feelings of acceptance and appreciation, can also result from establishing a welcoming environment. Communication, effective communication, is really key to being a responsive educator. Beginning a family conference with warm comments that acknowledges the child in a positive way can be a step towards a connection. Home visits can be another way that the educator can gain a better understanding of the family and build partnerships. When educational programs and schools offer many experiences where parents and their children can share fun and educational activities, there is higher participation. These activities educate both generations while increasing opportunities for them to communicate and share about school-related experiences. So we might think about family nights, field trips to community attractions, and other opportunities for children to show project work or be able to share with their families. Family participation comes in many shapes and sizes. Henderson's book, Beyond the Bake Sale, The Essential Guide to Family School Partnerships, conveys the notion that family involvement is not just one kind of activity. In fact, researchers at the Harvard Research Project note the value of thinking 4 dimensions of family involvement. Families want to develop skills and talents, engage in fun and educational tasks, develop governance and leadership skills, connect to school or program and community resources. The Head Start Parent, Family, and Community Engagement Framework is a helpful tool for thinking about family engagement. It is an inclusive framework looking at all levels of an early childhood program and what it takes to achieve successful outcomes with children and families. The framework highlights family engagement activities that are systemic and integrated across program foundations. This leads to enhanced family engagement outcomes and more likely will result in children who are healthy and ready for school. The goal is for activities to be grounded in positive, ongoing, and goal-oriented relationships with families. Consider if any elements are missing from the framework. We will look at it periodically throughout the course. Follow the stairs up and beyond for tips for family engagement. Get to know family members and make them feel a part of your program. Use formal and informal communication that is effective to connect with families. Let families know that they are welcome. Honor family diversity by translating materials for family who do not speak English. Have events that celebrate all cultures. Hire staff who reflect the families that you serve. Other activities where family members learn new skills. Offer enjoyable learning experiences the whole family can participate in together. Invite caregivers to play a role in decision-making or leading activities. Connect families to early childhood programs or services in the community. Programs and individual educators can use this model. Some models recognize the educator's role in promoting family engagement. For example, Epstein and Weiss offer models of involvement for family and professional partnerships. What may work in the life of one child may not work for another. So different models call for families and educators to work together and develop goals, establish the best practices in meaningful ways for both parties. Models recognize that programs and families have resources that they can bring to the partnership. This ends the discussion on what is a family and what is family engagement and how family systems play a role in understanding how families function in and through a school partnership.